Going to go on a quick time. When we come back, I introduce my guest to you for tonight. Then we delve straight into the conversations. Please do stay tuned. We'll be right back. Announcements on Adwa TV. Contact Adwa TV for your general announcements, proclamations and publications, job vacancies, etc. at a very affordable rate. Call 05092 57754 020 or visit our marketing desk at the work premises. Adwa TV, bringing good things to life. We are looking at protection of employment, the rights and duties of the employer and employee. I have with me the head of public relations for the National Labour Commission in the person of Mr. Eriam Duche Kwame Totime Jr. How you doing, sir?
Good evening, my brother. I'm doing well.
Should I say Happy New Year?
Yes, and Happy Labour Month as well.
Yeah, Happy Labour Month. Yes, the month of May. Happy Labour Month.
We are in the month of May. So.
You know, on the 1st of May, I was just looking out to see if probably I'll spot you somewhere. Where is he? But, well, actually, there's a lot of people over there. But I do a very good work for the Labour Commission.
We have to.
Jesus Christ.
For God and country. So it's very necessary.
And all the time, you are very committed and poised to the work you do.
Yes.
Thanks for the invitation. That's a part of last year, Joe, for the training.
Yes.
For having Adwa TV in mind.
That's
and ensuring that we are part of your processes also. We are very, very grateful for that.
Thank
that
you
relationship.
So much. Thank you so much.
All right.
Adwa TV has been very helpful in terms of the work we do as an institution. Like you rightly mentioned, we started this engagement with you. And forward ever we are going.
Sharp. Like Nkuma said, forward ever, backwards never. Welcome to the show one more time, sir. Yeah. In fact, this lady actually is all the time behind the cameras. All the time. In fact, she takes the notes, she do the picture, she does the paparazzi stuff. And today, in fact, I am honored to have her come on camera now. I have Miss Julia Falvi. I got it right?
Yes.
Wonderful. She's Assistant Public Affairs Officer with the National Labour Commission of Ghana. Good evening, ma'am. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I am fantastic. Even if I'm not fine, in fact, behold your sight alone, I'm going to be fine. How's work, guys? Everything. I hope Totime is treating you well.
He is. He's a very good boss.
Oh, I know, right. Welcome one more time.
Thank you so
In
much.
fact, feel free. This is home. In fact, this is already home for you. But this set is home. Anyways. Before we start the conversation, maybe we just have to. I just want to have a background conversation where I'll come to look at employment protection between employee and employer. But first of all, let us do the basis. Let's identify who is an employer and who is an employee.
Thank you very much, Pepsival. First of all, I would want to also greet all the working class of Ghanaians and those who are also aspiring to join the workforce in the country. They are the makers and movers of the nation. They carry the country on their back on daily basis to ensure that businesses thrive so that the nation will develop. And so we want to wish them a happy Labour Month. Yes, on the issue of employer and employee, when we say an employee, it is somebody who has gotten himself involved in a chosen profession or work that he earns at the end of a working period. Anybody who falls within the bracket of the working class who performs a service and receives reward or remuneration is classified as an employee. When we talk of an employer is also somebody who has established a business or an enterprise, who owes a capital and has turned this capital into a business through which he has been able to bring people on board and they get paid for their services. That is what an employer stands for.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So in a nutshell, I am an employee of Adwa TV, and then the people who give me the job, the Dasos of Accra, are my employers.
They are your employers.
Oh, awesome. So
there are instances that the employer will not be the face of the organization directly. It might be an employer's agent.
Okay.
For instance, those who are working in governmental institutions and the paragovernmental institutions, they mostly do not get to have their employer directly. When I say their employer, the employer is the one who has all the institutions under the government as his workforce. Now, if I am working at National Labour Commission, I am an employee of National Labour Commission. But then, those who manage the day-to-day affairs of the commission are acting as employers' agents.
Okay.
They are acting as employers' agents. So the members of management who handles the day-to-day affairs on behalf of government are the employers' agents.
Okay.
So that's the classification.
Okay, but so it can come up in some instances where even on some work, if the employer is not the owner of the job, that your CEO, your director can be an agent for the employer.
Exactly. So in this instance, the executive secretary of the commission, coupled with the directors and line managers of the organization, instance Labour Commission, are acting as employers' agents because they are holding the fort for government. So they are the employers' agent. And they have the responsibility to recruit, to discipline, to train, to retrain, to terminate, to transfer, because they have that capacity as employers' agent. So they have the responsibility to handle the organization as such.
Thank you. Ms. Julia, in the instances where the employer, whether in the form of being the agent or being the owner of the job itself, what duties are ascribed to them under the laws of our country?
So when I would first of all like to make reference to the Labour Act when it comes to the duties of the employer. And under Section 9 of the Labour Act talks about duties of the employer, and it says that some of the duties of the employer includes to provide work and appropriate raw materials, machineries, equipment, and tools for the worker to use to carry out their day-to-day activities at the workplace. It also talks about it also says that pay the agreed remuneration at the time and place agreed on in the contract of employment or collective bargaining agreement or by law or agreed between the employer and the worker. That has to do with salaries and benefits. So if the employer and the employee agree on a certain amount, the place it should be paid, it is saying that it is the duty of the employer to pay those remunerations at the agreed time and place, right? And this, as I said earlier, based on the contract of agreement reached between parties, or maybe the collective agreement reached between the employer and the trade union the worker belongs to. Another duty of the employer is to take all practical steps to ensure that the worker is free from risks of personal injury or damage to his or her health during and in the course of the worker's employment while lawfully on the employer's premise. Now, as you're aware, mostly when you go into any employment relationship between which is between an employer and an employee, you first enter with medicals. And the employer, after you've gone through the medicals, you are healthy and everything. So when you go into the workforce as a healthy person, the expectation is that you come out as a healthy person. So the law is saying that you should take all practical steps to ensure that the worker doesn't experience any personal injury or damages to his or her health. So that is why these are some of the duties of the employer to
So
ensure
in a nutshell, it's not about just creating the job.
Yes.
You create the job, you pay the remunerations as prescribed, and then you ensure that you create a safe environment for the employee to operate within.
Very well. Yes. And to add on, the duties of the employer includes develop the human resource by way of training and retraining of the worker.
That's in service.
Yes.
Pre the work and then provide in service training too.
Yes. Because I mean, sometimes we go to school, we complete, and then it's just theory. You have to gain the practical experience to be able to effectively work to enhance productivity, because as a worker you are also, your duty is to ensure that your employment yields productivity for the employer. So by that you are supposed to be trained on the job, know what your job entails, and if you lack certain capacities or qualities, then they have to train you to enhance that aspect of your skills. Yes. The law also provides that the duty of the employer is to provide and ensure that the operations of the law provides and ensure the operations of an adequate procedure for discipline of the worker. As my boss rightly said, the employer has the right to hire and fire, but you just don't do that in isolation. There have to be a disciplinary procedure to follow before such actions can be taken, that is to terminate a worker. So the law, it is your duty to provide the scope of disciplinary procedure that parties will be binded by, and and also when there is any grievance channel, parties can go through to amicably resolve the problem. Yes. And then the other duties of the employer include furnish the worker with a copy of the worker's contract of employment. Now the law says that every worker should be given a contract of employment. 2 months into the commencement of your job, you should be given a written contract, and so as a result you have to be furnished with a copy. That is because the contract of employment states the terms and conditions of your employment, and also the rights and obligations of both the worker and the employer. It governs the working relationship at the workplace. And lastly, keep open the channels of communication with the workers. In recent times, the working relationship is not a master-servant relationship whereby it's always
Master
about
say.
backing orders. Yes, there should be this open communication. Sometimes you will be amazed at the opinions or suggestions a worker can give that will promote the work, that would ensure productivity or the growth of the company. So you should make sure that the channel of communication is always open, so that the worker can have that cordial relationship with you, and then have a peaceful industrial.
It creates a friendly environment,
Yes.
but even with that, there should be boundaries.
Yes.
Thank you about that. Tosiman, you know, when Ms. Julia was making mention of the duties, what comes to my mind is that this is what the person is expected to be doing by way of duties.
Yeah.
But every establishment, by way of the Incorporation Act, the establishment inherits a human identity or a human form. So, National Labour Commission is an entity, but it's ascribed to certain rights under the incorporation, so that they are liable to be sued and they can sue among other things.
Yeah.
So, per the labor laws, what is then the right of an employer that the laws expect them to that is binding on them?
Okay. Thank you very much, my brother. The right of the employer includes to employ, to train, to transfer, to terminate, to discipline the worker. There are instances that an employer is employed and he gets transferred to a certain area which he or she claims to be remote, and as a result you feel that he's being mistreated at the workplace. It is not so. The Labor Act rightly says that the employer has the right to transfer at any time. That is under Section 8 of the law.
Provide reasons or no reasons.
Without any reasons.
I feel you have to be transfer you.
Yes. And if the employee also does anything which is wrong, the employer has the right to discipline. There are certain people, when they go wrong and they are disciplined, they feel that they are being mistreated at the organization, but it is not like that. It falls within the ambit of the employer to do that. Again, it also talks about formulating policies and programs for the organization to work with. Now, I have the capital. I have established my business. I know what I want to achieve at the end of the day. The law says I have the responsibility to put together policies that will help the organization to run. I intend to, say, produce 50,000 boxes of fruit juice in a year for export. I have a capital and I've invested in a business. I have to put policies in place to ensure that I'm able to attain. Every businessman's want profits. I have to put in policies to ensure that I am able to work according to my set target and attain it. So it also falls within the rights of the employer. He has the right to modify and extend or cease operations. So an employer can get up one day and say that from today we are no longer going to operate the mango factory. We are closing it down. It's his right. It's his right. And so all these forms part of the rights that the employer has, and then he can execute it at any given time. Again, it says that the employer has the right to determine the products that have to be even sold or that have to be produced. That is the right of the employer. And so the employee cannot contend with his employer on these grounds. First of all, you are joining the organization because you know what the organization stands for, and you know you can equally fit into it. You have expertise that you are also bringing on board. So whatever the employer has as a right to do, you can only come in and assist in the growth of the organization. And so this forms part of the rights of the employer.
It's scary hearing you say it. Does the law then gives a caveat on how to exercise this right? Because at the end of the day, if tomorrow my director should come and say that we are ceasing operation, he is the employer. We are ceasing operation. As to whether there's going to be food on my table or there's no food on my table, according to this right, he can exercise it.
Oh yeah.
So does the law also give room for some level of discussion, some level of conversation to be had between the parties involved in the course of the employer exercising these rights, there should be some level of engagement? Does the law provide for it?
Well, yes, it does. See, when you read under terminations of employment, okay, or even under redundancy, there are conditions that the law spells out. So, for instance, if the employer feels that due to one reason or the other, he cannot continue operating the organization, the law grants him the free will to do that. But then there are conditions. If he intends to end or terminate the working relationship, what the law says is, if he has worked with you for a period of 3 years and beyond, he should give you at least 1 month notice. 1 month notice, or 1 month salary in lieu of the notice. Or if he has worked, or you have worked less than 3 years at the enterprise level, then he can give you 2 weeks notice or 2 weeks salary in lieu of the notice. This is also granted. When it comes to the issue of redundancy, the conditions that are there is that the employer will have to write to the chief labor officer, inform him about his intention to declare staffs or workers redundant. When that is done, the employer is also expected to notify the workers if they are unionized. That can be communicated to their union leaders. If they are not unionized, then to the general workers. And here what happens is the chief labor officer or his assistant or any other employee of the labor department will be made to assist the employer or the management of the organization and then the union at the workplace, so that they can make a determination on what should be given to the employer, to the employee, as a way of severing relationship at that given time. And again, if the employers or the employees are not unionized, then it comes that the organization will have to sit with the individuals one by one and determine how much should be paid to each of them to offset them. And so these are the conditions that are there. Aside from that, the employer has the liberty to close down his organization at any time. And that has happened without any issues.
Yes. So far as the person has the right to establish the business,
he also has the right
to close it.
Or to cease operation. Yes.
Having established the right of the employer on the part of we that we are the receiving end, we that we are being engaged in something, do we also have some rights as a worker? Do we have them?
Yes, the worker has a right. The worker has a right to work under satisfactory, safe, and healthy condition. So like Julia mentioned earlier, if you employ the worker to work with you, you have to provide the necessary protective equipment. For instance, if the person is working in a factory, you have to provide him with clothes or gadgets, protective clothes, boots, and so on and so forth, to protect the fellow. See, he has a right to work under a satisfactory condition. Some of us, when we go to our workplace, we sit behind our desk with computer from morning till close. The worker, have you thought of providing some protective shield on his computer such that he wouldn't have a direct race with the light? All these things must be taken into consideration, because the worker has the right to work under a satisfactory condition. The worker has the right to join a trade union. There are instances that people walk into the commission and their concern is that their employer is refusing them to join a trade union. In as much as the employer cannot compel the worker to join a trade union, likewise, the employer also has the right or the liberty to join or not to join. You see, this all forms part of the rights of the worker. And then the worker also has the right to receive information that are relevant to his work. So therefore, if I have been employed to be a cleaner at the workplace, I should know the offices that I'm supposed to clean. There are some offices that the fact that you are a cleaner does not give you the liberty you can go in at any given time. It's not every place that is like that. And so the worker will have to be given the relevant information that are needed for his work that he is doing.
Sometimes people leave us to go and figure it out, you know.
That is not the best. That is not the best, because the person may have just joined the organization. And you see, it may interest you to know that people even employ people into their organizations, and the basic communication channels, like Julia mentioned earlier, that should be open to them are closed. There are some people, they are working in certain establishments, they can't even get to see their CEO unless it's an end of year gathering or party that they are all having. You see, so when these things are there, it makes it quite difficult for the worker to also access very key and relevant information. Again, the worker has the right to be trained and to be retrained or retained as well at the workplace. Now you have employed me. Whilst you employed me, I take it that I was a Nino. I didn't have any idea about what I'm supposed to do. It's the responsibility of you, the employer, to offer me a training so that I will know what to do at the my chosen enterprise. You see, when that is done, it makes the work done becomes easier because you know what you are expected to bring on the table at the end of the day. And you need to be retrained. That's the pre-training and the post-training whilst you are on the job. For instance, have been recruited, like we have cameramen in your studio tonight. These cameramen that you have recruited all over here, now, whilst you recruited them, you trained them. But as they work and they progress, there are instances that new technology, because we are in an advanced technological world now, new cameras comes and they need to apprise themselves with how it can even be manipulated. Exactly. And so the law says that you as the employer has a responsibility to retrain them when they are employed.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I think, Julia, one of the things that you were making mention of, which also came into it, is information and then contract. It's a contract of employment or employment contract. No, the little law I study, when two people come to an agreement and then they put certain things on paper, and then there's a witness, that we have a contract. In the business world, too, so far as I'm being offered a bidding to do something, then it's a contract. But in the sense of employment, what then is a contract?
A contract of employment is a policy document that spells out the terms of employment or the terms of employment that governs the working relationship between the employer and the employee. And when it comes to the labor industrial relations, the law states that every worker should be given a contract of a written contract of employment. Because I mean, you have to be guided by some policies. It spells out the rights and obligations of both parties to the contract, whereby it governs their working relationship. And so that is what the law says. And the law says that when an employment of a worker by an employer for a period of 6 months or more, or for a number of working days equivalent to 6 months or more within a year, shall be secured by a written contract of employment. And as I stated earlier, it also says that the contract of employment shall express in clear terms the rights and obligations of the parties involved in the contract.
So that is both the employer and the employee.
Yes.
So the rights of the employer, the rights of the employee, what your duties and responsibilities are going to be, so far as this work is expected. Both forms are all put on a particular written document. That is the contract.
Yes.
So that is why sometimes I say that the employer reserves the right to blah 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 blah. So that is a contract.
Yes, that is a clause in the contract. There are some prerogatives that you cannot take away from the employer, as my boss rightly said when he was talking about the rights of the employer. He has a right to formulate policies for the organization, and so by so doing, they can add some bit of clause. And this contract is not imposed on you; it is negotiated, and you both agree to the terms. If you don't like it, you reject the contract.
But if you get a contract, you get a job.
That is fair. That is fair. That is fair.
You know, sometimes is it that those days, they say there are probationary periods for work.
Yeah.
And it's 3 months, right?
Yeah.
It depends.
It depends when it's 6 months. 6 months. Yeah. So is it a law is saying that when the engagement is going to go beyond 6 months, then there's a need for us to have a written contract.
Yeah.
So I'm going to even be given a job for a 2-year contract, and then I am under probation. It's something like that probation that in the framework of the mind of your policy, where the employee who is coming in can navigate his way and find out that, okay, these are the conditions. Am I okay to work with it, among other? Then finally, after the 6 months, we both bind ourselves to the work. But trust me, a community, we have to sign the document.
It's unfortunate.
Trust me. So if you don't have chair to sit down in your office, you have to sign, because the thing is that we are looking at the money and the bigger picture. But that's a bit. So in the elements where we enter into spaces where after 6 months, you're not being given any document, and then you are just there. What is done is that, okay, you are being paid. That's all. Oh, the month has ended, you are being paid. But there's nothing that is binding the two of you that you are into this work. What happens?
What the law says is, just to frame it in a layman terms, if you've worked beyond 6 months, the law says that you should be treated as a permanent worker. So any terms and conditions that are used to govern a permanent worker and that the organization would apply to you, despite the fact that you haven't been given written particulars of your employment contract. That is not to say that we don't accept, the law does not accept or recognize verbal contracts of employment. The law recognizes. So therefore, when you are in an employment relationship and it's all verbal, you can still seek redress at the commission, at court, or wherever you think you want to take the issue, the labor issue to, so far as that institution is mandated to handle that labor dispute.
So if I'm engaged and then I don't have, because what juniors usually say that the law recognizes verbal agreements, but in that verbal agreement, I'm not taught how embezzlement is being handled. Then I'm being employed as head of stores. Then after 6 months into my 7th month, there's a huge embezzlement that I am culpable. So after investigations, I am caught. How is my case going to be dealt with? Because there's nothing binding on what my culpability, what I've engaged in, that will be binding on me. How do you address some of these things?
It's ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Bum.
Once you know what is right and what is wrong, if you fall foul of it, you are punishable by law. So in the instance that you talked about embezzlement, you see, as an employee, and even the laws also provide the age range within which one can get himself employed. Under the 1992 Constitution, anybody who is 18 years and beyond can work. It is believed that at that age, you are of sound mind. And you can work to satisfaction. And so if you get yourself involved in an embezzlement at the workplace, you are culpable for it. And you are punishable by law.
Okay.
And so in this instance, the employer can choose to take you directly to court or even bring you to the Labor Commission. If it becomes necessary that we refer the matter to the traditional court, that will be done. You see. And so one does not necessarily need to be given a written statement or document before he can get to know what he's supposed to do and what not. That is why it is the right also of the worker to have information on the work that he is doing.
So if you have not given, ask for it.
Yes, if you haven't been given, you can ask for it. So that you can get to know of what you are supposed to do and what not. There are a lot of instances that people are caught as having embezzled funds at the workplace. But in fact, you go to the nitty-gritty of the case and you realize that it is not directly embezzlement, but maybe there has been a misappropriation. We have requested for funds to undertake a business. And maybe along the line, we realize that the people who we are going to commit that resource into their hands to work with, they need to be given some level of training. But maybe in the requisition for the loan or whatever, the agreement that we went before we even had the funds, we didn't indicate training in it. But we need to train the people. So you end up putting some of the resources into training the worker. And at the end of the day,
auditors will see that.
Auditors will come, audit your books, and they will find out that, no, there has been a shift in what you have proposed to do with the resources. And you can be cited. You see, you can be cited for misappropriation. So these are some of the things that are there. You have to have basic information on your work so you can work under the satisfactory condition that we are all looking at.
Awesome. So we've been able to establish that the contract of employment, some is not all the time is going to be written.
Yeah.
The law permits that it
but
can be
you see,
verbal.
Pepsival, the reason why it is mostly important to be written are some of the issues that
it avoids all these nuances.
Exactly. There are instances that the employer even employs you. He tells you, you are going to be the HR for the organization, human resource officer of the organization. You end up becoming a driver as well. You see,
Become a
you
PA
end
clerk.
up becoming a cleaner. He even sent you to go and pound fufu for his wife in the
Yes,
house.
yes.
But all these are not part of your conditions of engagement.
My producers have been sending me to go and buy wachi because I'm good. That's what they do. They abuse me. Yeah.
You see, so all these are part of the conditions or the reasons why the contract must be spelled out. Even when there are problems and it comes to the commission, the first thing that we ask you is that you provide us with your written contract or your employment letter. You see, when we are able to get this, we are able to know the conditions under which you are engaged.
You know what? When it comes to casual staff, maybe casual workers, people that, in the mind of the employer, I need their services, but maybe I won't be able to commit a full length with them when it comes to what is due a full-time employee. So you are being engaged as a casual staff. Are they also entitled for a contract, a written contract?
Yes.
They are.
Yes. And with contract workers, what the law says is that it's expected that the contract worker is supposed to work for 6 months and not beyond 6 months. So even after 6 months, if the person is not given a written contract of employment, the law says that the person should be treated as a permanent worker.
So everything that is due the permanent worker, you have to do same for the contract, because the person has gone beyond casual worker, because it's gone beyond 6 months.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do we have types of contract of employment? Yes. Do you have type of it?
Yes. According to the Labor Act, there are types of employment contracts, and it says that remuneration at a monthly rate. The contract is a contract for month-to-month contract.
Oh, okay.
This has to do with workers who are paid like every month or at the end of every month. They are those on the monthly rates when it comes to the contract of employment. Then we have remuneration at a weekly rate. The contract is a contract from week to week. As you are aware, some organizations also pay weekly or bi-weekly, give or take the nature of the agreed remuneration discussed between the employer and the worker. Then we have remuneration at a rate other than monthly or weekly. The contract is a contract determinable at will. Maybe before the employment, there was this negotiation, and the parties have agreed on how the remuneration should be, either daily or monthly or whatever. So this is what the law determines as determinable at will, because parties have agreed on their own, which may be different from the weekly or monthly. So yes.
You see my confusion right now.
So just to add to where Julia is just signing off. So determinable at will. Now, somebody is a casual worker. I've engaged the fellow to always come in the morning to come and then weed around my house, or whenever I need the services of the worker, I bring him or her to come and work. After which I pay him and he goes off. So that is determinable at will.
Okay. All right. So that's fine. It clears the first one. But the other bit is, we have contract of employment. Then we have condition of service. Are they the same thing?
Pardon, come again.
We have contract of employment. Then we have condition of service. Are they the same document? Is it the same thing?
Yeah. So let me attempt to answer it this way.
Attempt.
When we talk of contract of, you said contract of
employment.
It spells out the work that the worker is supposed to do and the period within which he is supposed to work.
Okay.
And so with many a times the contract, it tells you that you are going to work for a period of 6 months. Throughout the 6 months period, this is how much we are going to pay you. This is what you are supposed to do and what not. So it spells it out. And then you made mention of the
condition of service.
The condition of service. The conditions of service of the worker tells the operational guidelines, or it gives the operational guidelines of what the worker is expected to do and what the employer is also expected to do for the worker. That is the conditions of service. Awesome. So that I will know that the work that I'm coming to do at the end of the day, this and that is what is required of me. My employer is also supposed to provide me with this and that, so that it satisfies the two of us. If we are all okay, then we go into agreement and then the work starts.
Okay, Julia, on the face of a contract of employment, when some elements are missing, for instance, I've heard you mention remunerations, which is supposed to be determined. Remuneration either weekly, whether monthly, or at will. And then duration of the work. For instance, maybe if it is going to be beyond 6 months, it's going to be 1 year, it's going to be whatever be the case. If some of these elements are missing on a document I'm presented to a place I'm being engaged to work, does it validate what I'm going to do? Is the document binding?
Okay, so
for instance, I give you work to do. I open a beauty parlor. I'm the owner of Julia Beauties. Then I give you work to do, to come and work as a hairstylist there for me. I give you a contract of employment, but I don't state how much I'm paying you. It's just there. It's a blank. Yours is, I've given you, okay, you're supposed to come and work for me. I'm supposed to do all these things. Make sure that there's light for you to work. I provide the tools, blah, 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 blah. Come to work earlier this time, you close at this time, blah. But it does not spell out remunerations, how much I'm giving you, either weekly or monthly. Does it make that document binding enough?
So long as you don't sign on it, it's invalid. And if it contravenes the Labor Act, it's also invalid. And if you're given such a contract, you have to ask questions about your remunerations, the hours of work, rest periods, and every other thing that you think that is spelled out in the labor law or the Labor Act. So if you are given such a contract, you ask. And if the employer doesn't give you a favorable response or whatever the employer tells you, as for salary, it's not in the labor law. And that can be negotiated between the employer and then the employee. However, any other terms of employment, any other terms or conditions of service or terms of the employment conditions has to be specified in line with the labor law. It must not contravene it. So if those things are not spelled out, you seek clarification or seek further discussion. And if the response is not good enough, you can decide whether to accept or reject.
Okay.
Yes.
The last one I was scanning through your website. I saw a very big terminology. Prohibition of restrictive condition to employment. Very big word. But when it comes to the labor relation, when it comes to the relations between an employer and employees, as far as their contract of employment is concerned, when we talk about prohibition of restrictive conditions to employment, what do we mean?
Okay, so under Section 14 of the Labor Act, it talks about prohibitions, and the employer does not have any right whatsoever to prevent somebody who intends to join or is already in the organization from being part of a trade union. Likewise, he cannot compel the individual to also join the trade union. You see, in the 1992 Constitution, it provides for freedom of association. And so it is the right of the employer to associate or not. The employer does not also have any right to say that because of your color, your gender, your race, or your ethnicity, I'm not going to allow you to do A, B, C, D. What is good for the goods is equally good for the gander. There are instances in this country here, and I'm very much passionate about this. Many expatriate organizations in Ghana here have their employees being treated in a way that is very inhumane. Especially those who have their those expatriates who have their own natives
working for
them. They consider their Ghanaian counterparts. Yes, they consider many a times they consider their Ghanaian counterparts as non-entities, and it's very bad. The labor law frowns on this. It's a prohibition. So long as you have engaged the person to work with, whether he's a black, whether he's a white, whether he's an Asian, whatever it is, the law says treat all of such individuals equally. Again, it says that the employer does not have a right to refuse to employ the person because of that person's membership of a trade union. There are some organizations, they will never allow you to belong to a trade union. The employer doesn't have any right.
So maybe somebody is employing me to become a domestic staff. And by virtue of me being part of Domestic Workers Association, says that because you are part of this, I won't employ you.
Yes. The employer doesn't have any right to say that because we have freedom of association. You see. And many a times they don't know the reasons why the framers of these laws placed such a right to the ordinary Ghanaian.
There's a spirit to every law.
There is a spirit to it. And the reasons behind some of these things is that I earlier mentioned the issue of redundancy. What the law says is if you want to even declare redundancy at your workplace, write to the chief labor officer, seek his concern on that, so that he can help you, guide you on how to go about it, so that the workers can go home under a satisfactory condition.
Okay.
You see, and what it even goes further to say is when you are doing this, if the workers are unionized, work with their union leaders. It becomes easier for you. Because if, assuming you are having about 1,000 workers at your workplace and they are not unionized, you need to sit with each one of them one by one.
For example, you're operating a factory.
Yes.
You have 1,000 hands you are working with.
Exactly.
And
so these are some of the reasons why there must be a union at the workplace. If the worker feels that he wants to join a union, he has a liberty to do that.
Okay. On the basis of the redundancy and termination, back to the contract. Initially, I mentioned that I'll tell you about my fear of the employer has the right to establish the business and can close the business at any time. On the face of the contract of employment, do we know the modalities of termination? You are engaging my services at the point of where you are going to exercise your will of terminating your services with me. Should it be spelled out in the condition of service?
Exactly. There are conditions. You see, there are grounds
on the contract of employment. Yeah.
Yes, there are grounds for termination. Okay, there are grounds. The law spells it out. Now, if I'm working with you, and due to one reason or the other, I feel we can't continue, there must be a reason. There must be a reason. One, the employer can say that he is terminating your employment on grounds of your ill health. If you are found to be invalid, that's such that you can't work any longer, the employer cannot continue to keep you at the workplace. You must be taken off. You see, there are conditions and steps that are also done through a medical examination to know that truly you are invalid, you can't work any longer. Because even as you are working, you are being paid your SNIT, and you have to also claim your entitlement as SNIT. And even with your SNIT, if you are not 60 years, you can't go for it. If you are not going at voluntary, which is 55, then you must wait for 60 years. But if if it is due to an ill health condition such that you can't work again, then that one, it must be proven by a medical board. So you can even claim your SNIT money. And also the employee can choose to terminate his own employment if he feels there are sexual harassment at the workplace. Some people, you work with them and they harass you sexually. That one, the employee has a right to say that I can't continue the engagement with you. And that one too is acceptable. Again, it talks about the employer, because of the inability of the worker to carry out his or her work due to sickness, like I mentioned, accident, incompetence of the work. If the worker is found to be incompetent, you can't continue to keep him at the workplace.
You're wasting money on the person.
You are wasting your resources.
So incompetence goes to productivity.
Exactly. But you see, on the issue of incompetence, you must have basis to prove it. Now, you have employed me. You refuse to train me. So how do you come to tell me I'm incompetent? You haven't offered me any training on the job. So how do you assess me? Are you doing a yearly appraisal? Do you set targets with the employee at the beginning of the year? Do you do a half-year appraisal assessment to know how the employee is faring at the workplace? all these are benchmarks that will have to be established before you can lay off the worker. You see, so there are grounds that one will have to go through before he can say that he is terminating or approving misconduct of the worker. Many a times, dismissal is unpardonable. Before one is dismissed, then it means that he has involved himself in a gross misconduct. For example, stealing. In government work, if you steal, you are dismissed. That one, there is no this thing about it. You don't bring anybody to come and beg for you,
Not
or even
chief,
fighting
the
at the
chief,
work.
the
Yes,
chief of your own town.
no, or fighting at the workplace. The punishment is also dismissal. You see, so all these are conditions under which one can be terminated. Hence, these are some of
And
the
these things
conditions or
are
the grounds.
spelled out
They
clearly.
are spelled out. When you read section 15 of the Labor Act, it talks about all these things.
Now, there's an hypothetical situation I want to bring to your attention, both of you, on termination and even suspension, where a driver who is employed of an entity has a structural hour and is assigned to the company's vehicle where the MD is to be using. And in between the times, sometimes the MD gives its own private car to the driver to go and wash, go and use a car to pick the family, among other things. But it balances it within the structural hours. And sometimes off structural hours, the driver engages in such activities. And one of the days, the MD gives his private vehicle to the driver to go and wash beyond structural hours. So the driver is supposed to close at 5 p.m. every day. So when he closes from work, he says, take my car and go and wash my car. The driver goes out at 5 p.m. Never returns the car on time, and returns the car about 1 hour time to see that the bay are closed. So the man says, okay, then where is the money I gave to you to go and wash the car? This will have used the money to buy wachi. Then instantly the MD suspends the driver. To probe the matter, the MD justified to say that, okay, it is off structural hours, but the contract of employment, the last bit says that, and any other thing to be assigned to you by your superior, the MD, HR, blah, blah, blah. So that clause on the contract of employment is what the MD is using to justify that, yes, you've stated your structural work and whatever I'm supposed to do on the contract, but the F is saying that any other thing to be assigned to you. How do we handle some of these things? I mean, this as a classical example because it happens in other fields.
Yeah.
For instance, my work, I'm supposed to be on-air host, help with productions, help with research, among other things. And then there's a last that says that any other thing to be assigned to you by my director, by the chief of staff of the DAS, among other things. How do we navigate some of these issues?
Yeah, the employer has the right to assign the worker to any other duty in the establishment.
Yeah.
So long as it falls within the general working condition of the organization, the employer has the liberty to assign you. But you see, earlier you were talking about even the hours of work, and I could see that there was a clear distinction between the working hours and then the time that the person is sent to go and wash the car. You are supposed to work 8 hours in a day and 40 hours a week. That is the stipulated working period for every worker. And you are supposed to have a rest for 48 hours. Now you have consistently been working beyond the 8 hours in a day. Consistently.
Consistent, yes.
I choose to use the word carefully. Consistently been working beyond the 8 hours. That means that the worker is entitled to an overtime. He's entitled to an overtime. If he is working within the 8-hour period, which he is supposed to do during the day, and the employer is sending him to wherever to go and perform a legitimate duty, which will inure to the benefit of the organization, then he is doing his work. Because the law provides that the employer has the right to assign the worker to do any other thing as part of the work that he is doing. And so it is acceptable. It is acceptable. But on the basis that the employer consistently work beyond the 8 hours, he will have to be entitled to an overtime.
Okay.
Again, if it so happened that the worker may have on not on regular basis, but occasionally be assigned beyond the 8 hours, that one, it can be pardoned. For instance, I know that I am supposed to close at work at 5 o'clock, but I also have another activity to do after 5 o'clock. It is not always regular. It comes once in a blue moon. So that one, it may not necessarily attract an overtime, but the moment it becomes a consistent thing, then the employer has a right to demand it.
Interesting. Let's come to determination and remuneration. Tottenham mentioned it. Somebody saying we have to stress on it again. That at the point that we come to an agreement that we have to be your services are no longer needed, we have to terminate you. What does the law prescribe for remuneration? That once I'm being sacked, once I'm being laid off, what are you to give me as my employer, Miss Julia?
Okay, so according to Section 18 of the Labor Law, it says that when a contract of employment is terminated, the employer shall pay the worker any remuneration earned by the worker before the termination.
Okay.
That is your earnings. You've earned it, so you should be paid it. That's which you've earned. It also says that the worker should be paid any deferred pay due to the worker before the termination. If there are payments that were supposed to be given to you and it was deferred,
like arrest or something.
Yes, it must be paid to you as well. The law also says that any compensation due to the worker in respect of sickness or accident. So if you were sick or had an accident on the premise of the organization and they're supposed to compensate you for it, it must be given to you before the termination. The law also says that this is specific to foreign contracts, where the law says that the expenses and necessities for the journey or repatriation expenses in respect of the worker and accompanying members of his or her family, in addition to any or all of the payments specified in A, B, C, D. That is the things I listed earlier. So that is to say that if you are a foreign worker and you are brought to the country to work, and then your contract has been terminated, you must be paid all the necessary expenses, your flights, your family's flight, everything that will
take you back
enable
to
you go back to your country. Yes, so you should be given all of that. Yes,
so it's not just on that one thing that your contract is terminated and then you say bye bye to you.
No,
but we have to provide the financial bit of it.
Yes, exactly. And even with that, the law says if you assuming your contract is terminated with immediate effect, by the next day you must be given all of these things. That is what the law says. Yes,
that's what the law says. But do they do it, Miss Julia?
Oh, in practice, some do not do it, but some do it. Some pay before the termination.
So in the occasion that it's not being done, can the employee be going to the workplace to go and demand for it?
You don't want to cause trouble for yourself, so it's better you seek legal advice from institutions that are mandated to help redress the issue, like the National Labor Commission, Labor Department, or you can take it to the mainstream court to help address the labor disputes. Yes.
Are there any exceptions to these remunerations, or because the law says it has to be done, or on the part of the employer there are certain reservations left to him?
Well, so when we take Section 19 of the Labor Act, and I want to read what the provisions that are there states. It says that the provision of sections 15, 16, 17, and 18 are not applicable where in a collective agreement there are express provisions with respect to the terms and conditions for termination of the contract of employment, which are more beneficial to the worker. Now, I am working with you. If I intend to terminate your employment, what are the conditions that are there? There are steps. Things that I'm entitled to. Things that I have to benefit from. Like Julia rightly mentioned, if there are outstanding payments that are supposed to be made to me, be it in salaries, be in allowances, and even some leave. Some employers employ you, and they will not allow you to go on leave.
They will give you cash.
Which the law also frowns on it, because there is a reason why there must be a leave, and every worker is entitled to at least 15 working days. If you are working continuously for a year and beyond, you are entitled to at least 15 working days, so that the body can rest and bounce back to continue with work. And so all these conditions that are there under the 15, 16, 17, and 18, if the collective agreement already entails or the provisions that are in the collective agreement grants the worker all these rights are being taken care of, then it is fine. Either than that, it is the responsibility of the employee to pay off or to give all what is needed according to what the provisions of the labor law says.
But if it's already,
and there shouldn't be,
if it's already written, it's already spelled out in terms of the contract.
Exactly.
Then the employer is not meant to come to the 16, 17 bit of the labor law.
That is, if it is not going against, or it's not going against the employee.
Okay.
That is it. But if it goes against him, then what the labor law provides under 15, 16, 17, and 18 is what will be upheld. Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Totimen, for this evening. Very, very encouraging conversations. You know, sometimes these things are needed. It opens our eyes so that we too can demand the things from our employers. Yes, one of my bosses has been saying that in time Totimen comes, I don't like it. He has been opening your eyes too much. Keep coming. Keep coming.
Thank you. So long as you grant us your platform and your audience, we are always ready to.
Yeah, but there's that very small. We get to a point now. If I come, don't even give this. When you're passing, you can just enter the studio, come and say something and go. It's part of it. Yeah. All right, Miss Julia, have a good evening. Thanks for coming. And then I've enjoyed my section with you. If you have not enjoyed it with me, don't worry. Me, I've enjoyed mine with you. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us here and giving us the opportunity to come and speak and educate the Ghanaian workforce on the some portions of the Labor Act. Thank you.
Sure. Totimen, thanks for coming to us. Well,
thank you so
much.
Then
I hope I'll be seeing you. I just want to go back and see the next item we'll be having with you. So the 2025 Labor Month in May, they are having their media engagements. Sodwa TV stated to be having from today, that is 15th of May. The next time will be coming on Monday. They'll be coming to the morning show, and then they'll be talking on items on industrial actions in Ghana. Then on Tuesday, back again on PM Ghana. They're going to look at general conditions of employment. And then on Thursday, they'll be looking at labor unrest, assessing prevailing situations in Ghana and available remedies. That's unrest in there. We are all the time into it. They'll also be looking at strike and lockouts on Monday. Then on Tuesday, subsequently, we'll be looking at the functions and or dispute filing processes of the Labour Commission. Then on Thursday, complaints filing process. On Monday, they come again on collective assessment. And then on Tuesday, we do hours of work. And finally, on the 5th of June, we do the fair and unfair termination of employment. So the conversation we've had here on what goes into your contract, it travels up to the end of the month where you get to know what your general conditions of employment will be, at what point can you go or say that you are engaged on a labor unrest. Now, when they have a dispute with your employer, that's why we establish who an employer and an employee is. When there's a dispute, how do you go by it? How do you file complaints, among other things? We're having that conversations here. And then how do we come on a collective agreement? Okay, the things we are going to do, we've not written it anywhere, but how do we agree to abide by them? And then they come and explain it further. The hours of work you need to, they've mentioned that you're supposed to work 8 hours and then something a week. We come and look at the week. 40 hours a week, yes. So 40 a week. And then they say, yeah, 13 hours a day. Fair and unfair termination of employment are things we also be looking at subsequently in the week. So viewers, be part and parcel of the conversations this month, so far as labor is concerned. And we are the driving force of every nation. If you enter a country, people are not working there, there's a problem. So as far as they are working alone or you have a work and you've employed somebody, these are the conversations you need to be listening to so that tomorrow, either the employer does not shortchange the employee or the employee does not shortchange the employer. That there's pepper everywhere for everyone. So thanks for being part of it, and then see you on Thursday. Totime, I'm so grateful.
I'm grateful, sir.
And then this your jacket, I like it.
Thank you so much.
So I'll come and collect it.
I'll have to get you a proper one.
Sure. Be good. Enjoy your evening, Miss Julia.
Have a good evening.
Enjoy your evening too. Also.
You too.
All right. Thanks for being part. Salasi, Lester, me, Sasu, Nana, Frank, and the rest of the crew there. Thanks for being part. God bless our Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Have a good evening. My name is Pepsival. I'm out.
Osa very mambo